Welcome to Bull TV, where we are bullish on Collierville. I'm your host, David Pickler. Bull TV is a monthly show that empowers, educates, and entertains while highlighting the citizens of Collierville who inspire and deliver solutions for a stronger community. Bull TV is presented by Pickler Companies and is proudly produced by the students of Collierville High School. We invite you to watch our show at www.bulltv.show, thebullnetwork.com, and CHS-TV 19. New episodes air on the second Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. Central Time. As you may recall, last month, we had a phenomenal conversation with the legendary John Aitken and talked about so many things about Collierville schools. Today, we conclude this two-part presentation by learning more about this amazing man, the legacy he has left in public education for Collierville, and the future for Collierville schools and the work that he will be doing. So join us for part two of our conversation with John Aitken. Well, let's take a step back, because obviously to build this building and everything else, we had to first get the ability to have schools here and have our own district. So if you would talk a little bit about, from your perspective, the process of Collierville gaining their own school district. You know, the part that you played in this and the memories, both good and bad, you know, the things that kind of stand out for you in that.
Did I start shaking over here from PTSD from some of it? No. Well, you and I both were obviously intimately involved in a lot of those meetings. And, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, when back in 2010, for various reasons, Memphis City Schools decided to surrender charter by a 5-4 vote in a board member's last meeting. And I'm retired now, and I don't have to be politically correct. I saw a list of candidates for the Shelby County Schools Board, and that particular board member was putting her name out there to run for Shelby County School Board again. So that brought back a lot of memories. But obviously that kicked off that was the salvo that started a lot of things. You know, frankly, when talk of municipal systems or special school district talk came, I was actually on the other side of the aisle because I was running Shelby County Schools at the time. And when they talk about municipal school systems, we kind of had to just back away from the talk because, you know, obviously I was a superintendent of Shelby County Schools and my staff members were as well. But, you know, it quickly became apparent that, you know, I was interested in and would have taken the job of Shelby County Schools superintendent. But looking back now, I probably thank the man above every day for that not happening, and a lot of people taking care of me and my family at the time. But I think I became probably I'm a much better. I feel like I was a much better superintendent in Collierville because of the things I learned and the experiences I went through at Shelby County Schools. I laughingly talk about the difference in a large school district and a relatively, compared to that small school district, is that I had staff under me that took care of most of the stuff, and it got to my level, it was pretty serious. Here, if you know the cafeteria at Collierville Elementary School ran out of food one day, it got to me pretty quickly. And that was fun. That was the fun part of it, that you probably felt like you were having more of an impact on that. But as I said, once it became apparent, we went through court. For historians' sake here, the Norris Todd legislation came through, but the judge declared the initial legislation unconstitutional. Correct. So we had school board elections in all the municipalities, and they were declared null and void and unconstitutional. So all of those members who had run for election didn't. But what people didn't realize is when each of the municipalities had to approve in a referendum the fact that they not to start a new school district, but to approve the financing for a new school district. So once they approved that, even though the school board elections got declared unconstitutional, the money, sales tax that they raised, that they voted on, started churning in. We could have never formed a school district once it became legal without that flow of money, because the town was wise and banked that money. So for 6 months we were town employees, and we're on their payroll.
There you go.
So through that fund, but you know, you look back now and you think, wow. Things you probably could have done different. You know, there are a lot of things that I've looked back on and say, if I had done this or if we had done that, would things have turned out differently? But for the 6 municipalities, I don't think it could have turned out any better.
No.
It's the economic impact, academic impact, the autonomous, you know, as you said, the autonomy, the autonomous control that we have here, that would not have happened. This high school would not have been built. There would maybe have been a high school built, because at one time it was under our 5-year capital improvement plan, but I don't think it would have been a high school that looks like this, and all the programs that we're able to offer. And you know, we called a lot of we were called a lot of things back in those days of our motives and whatever. But you know, I think you and I both have stood firm with a lot of others that were right there beside you, and that, you know, this is what our communities want. This is the best thing for kids, and the opportunities for our kids, and our citizens are willing to do whatever they can, and they were willing to do that even when we were under the umbrella and the governance of Shelby County Schools, because all of the programs that we have out here were mainly parent funded and booster club funded. So you know, those types of things have continued, and now we have facilities and programs that just afford these kids so many chances.
Well, I think that's a really important point, is as proud as we are of what's happening in Collierville schools and the other 5 municipalities as well. You know, it really did begin with that great legacy of that Shelby County School District that served this community for nearly 140 years, and really provided, you know, the leadership team. You know, each of those 6, or I think 5 of the 6 superintendents, you know, came from Shelby County Schools.
Sure.
A lot of the staffing came from old Shelby County Schools, and so, you know, that was a great school system. But you know, thankfully we've been able to build upon, you know, the giants who helped build that district to build something even more amazing for our local communities that will give them that independence and autonomy for generations to come. It's great stuff. You know, you talk about some of the names that were called, and you know, you're no stranger to crisis management and having to pivot in times of great challenge. What would you say has been the biggest obstacle that you faced in your career, and how were you able to overcome it?
Well, you know, I guess the biggest obstacle, I don't know if you'd consider it a crisis, but you know, the whole Shelby County, Memphis City Schools merger, demerger, all of the formation, how all that went down. You were, in my case, it really was hard on me personally, obviously, but the worry was, for me, was all my staff and all my people in the schools and all my kids that I was in charge of, and how was it going to affect them? What were we going to do to make sure that they were protected? That that they were, all the rumors swirling around. So I quickly had to pivot from learning how to be a superintendent and managing all the things that go along with that, and build programs in a high degree of accountability that we had never experienced before, to being an encourager and being a team builder, probably more so than I had ever had to be, is the fact that, in fact, I can tell my staff, I can remember staff meetings like they were yesterday, is that when we started having to meet with Memphis City School staff and meet with the Transition Planning Committee and County Commission and all the different players in the game, I can remember them saying, said, we're going to do the hard stuff here, but I want everything to remain normal in schools. And that was kind of our mantra through it. We're going to protect our schools, let them just press on, and we'll take care of them, but we got to take care of the stuff here. And probably right now, I used to tell my folks, this, the judge has ruled, it's going to happen. Right. we have to go into it as team players and cooperative. And I look back now, though, and that might have been probably a mistake. I should have come out as my old coach and said, we're going to go in there and win every game. But trying to again build them. I think I was quoted in one of the Memphis Flyer maybe of saying, you know, we're one big family now. We got to figure out how to do this because this region is depending on us to figure it out. Now there are a lot of things that play out here on this side that were pushing back against us, but our philosophy then was, you know, to make this happen for our employees and our kids and our parents and our towns. Now, probably the biggest thing I've had to deal with in my career, but I had to deal with numerous incidents. I mean, I've dealt as a principal with deaths of students, deaths of faculty members at school, assistant principal at Houston when the tornado hit Germantown, hit Houston High School. We had to go to school with that dreaded rival Germantown High School back then for 3.5 weeks on a split shift. But, you know, crises such as that, that you look back on now and you think, how do you get through those things? And when I talk to people now, superintendents, and they ask, well, what do you do in cases like that? I said, well, you got to be you. I said, so you got to know you and what you're all about, so to be able to you know, push that down in that particular person. So stay true to yourself, but you have to be there for people. Even there's nothing more, oh gosh, more difficult than going to talk to parents after the loss of a child. Those are things that you never forget, and but as a leader and as someone that, you know, that kids look up to, and when something happens in a school, they don't look anywhere else. They look and say, how'd you handle it, boss man? And how the boss handles it and how the leader handles it, that's going to be reflected in everything that happens afterwards. So you have to remain calm and cool in front of people. During the merger, during the playing and everything, I tried to remain calm and cool, but as soon as the lights were off, they probably, you know, saw my bad side at sometimes. But, you know, that's kind of been a philosophy.
Well, I think that's a wonderful philosophy. And, you know, when you think about your role as a principal and you think about that community that you're really responsible for, a community of not only students, faculty, administrators, bus drivers, everybody who come in contact with you, and you're kind of the father of that, and you've got to be responsible. You know, I'm glad that you use the term leader when you talk about yourself, because in my opinion, you are a great leader and have been for many, many years. And you also have been a spokesman, not only for Collierville Schools, but really in a way for Collierville, an ambassador. What would you say would be your leadership philosophy?
Oh gosh, a team builder, I would hope, but the old Barnabas encourager. I think probably, and through the years, it's trying to encourage people that they can be as good as they want to be. That goes down to kids, that you can be. I've always had the philosophy with kids to try to be there for them when they're participating in all their activities, but also encourage them to try new things and get involved in things, and, you know, help those less fortunate through service organizations and encouraging them, but you have to model that as well. So I think probably leadership style is a cheerleader and encourager. I try to let people do their job, but also had to hold them accountable when things went south. But gosh, there's nothing. There's nothing probably makes me more proud. You talked about the superintendents of the other municipal districts. Every one of them at one time worked for me or right beside me. So to think now, you know, Russell Dyers at Cleveland now was my chief of staff. To think that, you know, you've had a hand, at least a small part of them going on to be a leader in their own districts and achieving leadership roles, and you know, that probably is the thing that I'm most proud of.
You know, one thing that you mentioned very briefly when you're talking about that was being there at some of the events and activities for your students. I know, obviously, you were the principal for my children, and there was a rumor going around that there is a cloning process, because it's impossible for anyone to be as many different places as you were, because you seem to be all over the state, wherever you know, Houston kids were performing or participating, whatever. You know, people knew They can look and see that big tall guy in the stands.
Yeah, and I did that before. Of course, it's easy for me because I love athletics. I love fine arts. I was in theater. I wish we'd had a TV studio when I was in school. I would have been the Joe Birch right now instead of John Aitken. But I kind of looked at that a lot of ways. I could not have done that, first of all, without a supportive family. Mm-hmm. And if you saw me there, in most cases, you saw Jody there, and you sure saw Shay there. And, of course, Hallie went to school there as well. So, I mean, they were always there. So that made it a little bit easier. I always kind of tried to tell people that when I talk to to teachers or to people who thought they wanted to be leaders or principals, when kids see you at a play or at a band concert or anything where you go, where they're participating in something, they see that interest in you and you're a human being, and that respect starts there. So when they're, in the middle of a hot spot at school and a situation comes up that they're having to make a decision, do I go this way on this road or the bad way down this road? They might think about, he's interested in us. He wouldn't want us. And I had one tell me one time, said, Mr. A, I could have made some bad choices, but I didn't want to disappoint you. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of things that, they lead you to, I'll drive 200 miles to a cross-country concert and then 30 miles down the road to a band concert, but Jody was right with me. Right. And she loved it. I told people when I left Houston, they were more disappointed that Jody wasn't going to be there than they were me. So, those are the things. But I think it just lends itself to a better atmosphere and climate in a school when kids know that people are interested. And I encourage my faculty. I said, I got to see you at some place outside the classroom. You got to get involved with them. Coach a team that you're not comfortable with. I think there's still a couple of people coaching sports at Houston that never played them and went kicking and screaming, but they wouldn't trade it right now for anything in the world, and that was because of that philosophy.
You've given such a great dialogue about being a principal. What would you say is the single most important thing of leading a large organization like a school district?
Hiring the right people. I mean, it's, I tell groups all the time, as a principal, probably the number one job was to hire good teachers. Mm-hmm. And good teachers, both in content knowledge, but that are good people. Mm-hmm. And I used to call some of my employees, they're just good school people. Mm-hmm. And you just know. I mean, your organization has people that have bought into the organization and will do whatever. They'll sell tickets. They'll coach, they'll do whatever. But as a superintendent, I felt like my number one job was to hire good principals and then advocate and support them. I've never been one for a central office or a superintendent I didn't want schools to think we were just throwing all this stuff down to them that they had to do. Mm-hmm. A lot of that comes from the state level and the national level. Our job was to support them and mm-hmm. do whatever we had to do to support them. So, but still, you got to hire the right leaders at every level of the organization.
That's great. This is going to be a hard one for you. Of all the positions that you've held in public education, from being a teacher to a coach to a principal to a superintendent, which position made the most indelible impact in your life?
Probably principal. Coach and teacher would be because they went hand in hand at the time. How people address me now, timelines where I had them. Mm-hmm. If I'm coach, I knew I had them prior to 92. But if I'm Mr. A, it's post-1992, but I mean, a great story. Just recently, I don't know how. I guess probably both of them had an impact, both coach and principal. Principal more so maybe because you had an influence over more people, right? And you were the leader not only of that school, but you needed to be the leader of the community, and you had to be a leader in the organization, but. There's any teacher will tell you, Jody's birthday was this past Saturday, the 26th of February, 2 Saturdays ago. And I reluctantly am on Facebook now, so I posted something, whatever. And one of my players that graduated in 1989 posted, "Happy birthday, Miss Coach." And she said, "I just need a big old Allen hug right now." And just laughed and whatever. And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, we were getting ready to go out to eat, and a knock on the door, and Alan shows up at my door with a dozen roses.
Oh, my goodness.
So those are the things, I probably rode him harder. Jody used to fuss at me that please back off, Alan, but when you're coach, you see the potential and you got to push him a little bit. But then you go to principal. I felt like my sphere of influence kind of grew, obviously, with the kids that I was dealing with and impacting. And I tried to, the joke was that I knew all of them's names, and I still remember a lot of them's names. That's the gift.
I wouldn't say the joke, I'd say the legend.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a gift I have. I think it probably grew at the attendance office at Houston High School because I had the list of the kids who were absent that day and were checking in and out. I knew their first, middle, last name, phone numbers. So you just kind of start, and that's that gift that I have and still goes on. But I still see them now and call them first, middle, and last name, and they look at me, and I run. And I would hope, like I mentioned a while ago about didn't want to disappoint me. I would hope that, they saw me as somebody who ran a good ship, tight ship, but still had grace and knew that, I had their back when I could, and I would lead them in the right direction when I could, and give them a little rope sometimes when they needed to. And a good friend of mine, I used to say, Mike McIntyre, who I'd ended up as principal at Germantown, but was blessed by working with him as an AP. We were old coaching rivals now, right. So we went at each other. But I thought he was the master at talking to parents, and I tried to learn a little bit from Mike is that, I've never seen anybody get a 180-day suspension and they walk out and they hug your neck like they did Mike McIntyre. Wow. So thanks, Mr. Mack, for doing what you did. So that was the type of, leadership or the leader that I wanted to be is that, I had your back, and I'll deal with you if I have to and give you consequences, but I want you to remember their little grace because people gave me grace. People, none of us would be here without a little grace.
Absolutely. Well, you've talked about Mr. A, and clearly you're a man of many nicknames. But again, a lot of your students affectionately called you Mr. A. So, thinking back your time at Houston High School, what would you say is your fondest memory of working with the students at Houston High?
I think probably seeing now some of the kids that I have now who are leaders in the community. I mean, that you didn't know that at the time was a memory. That's the legacy there. We had such good times there. Great team, great faculty. I tell everybody, great kids, supportive community. I used to dread it every year, but they taught me into performing at the senior miss concert right before Christmas every year, and it was it was crazy to think that those kids would be in the auditorium and I'd be singing and they'd be back then cigarette lighters and I'd be cell phones and they'd be waving like the concert. Athletic team succeeding. We had an incredible athletic legacy. Had the best band in the area. I look back now and one of Shay's friends, Colin, now has Facebook, and he posts every picture of me back through my whole career. I think he finds them somewhere, but I laugh because a lot of them involve kids that he went to school with at Houston. But, the most memory I have is tornado and dealing with the tornado. But then just dealing with kids and watching them succeed.
Absolutely. I'm sure that you didn't enjoy it all, taking that Best of Preps award away from Ernie Chisholm for a lot of years. What, about 12 or 13 years in a row, I believe?
Yes, sir. 13, I think, yeah.
John, I would absolutely classify you as really the epitome of a servant leader. And we've now heard the show, you serve in so many different areas in the public arena. You've also obviously are working in other areas. You've generously given your time to work with our foundation, with the American Public Education Foundation. And you make a point to attend so many of the events here in the town. What, in your opinion, is what makes a servant leader, and why is it so important?
Well, I think we mentioned a lot of it at the beginning of the interview. I mean, this town was built on servant leaders. And when you watch, you've had people that have molded me and maybe pushed me in one way or the other down a road that I otherwise might not have. Teachers in school, coaches, advisors. And again, to see them out giving back to the community always left an impression on me. My dad, was American Legion commander for years and hauled us every year to put the flags on the cemeteries on Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And so, when you see it and it's not anything that you have to do, it's just kind of you do it because it's the right thing. To give back, people ask, why did you choose Collierville over all the other municipalities? When I came superintendent, I said, one reason is to give back what the community's given me and my family, because, they gave my kids a great education. They gave us a great place to live and raise a family, but they've always been supportive of education, and I knew that environment was where I wanted to work. But this town, this country was built on servant leadership. I think of people now, even at the church level, of all the different ministries, even at Collierville Methodist Church, of people who have either retired or have taken something on to help fellow man, for lack of a better word. And it's not just in Collierville, it's across the world. And I think those are the things that they fuel you somehow intrinsically. But they just make you happy and make you want to do the right thing. Jody's dad, Jody will tell you, her dad always said, his speech to them every time something would happen, just do the right thing. And I think that's the right thing as people. We have to help people.
Without question. Let's transition to discussing the for a tall man, but the very long shadow that you have cast. You created such a powerful influence on Collierville, and it's something that I know you're proud of, and really we're all proud of. What one initiative that you've played a role in are you the most proud of?
I think forming the school system, and that's not one, but building this high school, and then watching it flourish and grow. You come to a finite point where it's time to go, but to see the things that you built, as we mentioned before, it's the #1 school district in Tennessee, to think that they had to bring a new superintendent in to be able to get to that #1, but the fact that some of the foundation was laid.
That's exactly.
To get it to that point would, I believe, be the legacy. Facility-wise, school district-wise, but I would hope that people see a legacy of building relationships. And again, we talked about servant leadership, but it's being out there to do whatever it takes and encouraging and helping people succeed in whatever it is they want to do.
We say you started in 1983, and now here we are in 2022. So literally closing in on 40 years in public education. What would you say has been the most rewarding aspect of this incredible career that you've had?
Meeting just being involved in people's lives and watching. I know that's a cliche sound, but watching kids and employees really just flourish, and carrying on I took a job at Collierville High School and said I'd coach anything. That still happens to this day. You've got people that will sit out here till all hours of the night. My daughter is one. To watch that legacy continue of working with kids, doing whatever it takes for kids, and that help them succeed, putting them in situations where they can succeed, providing programs where they can succeed, and then watching them become successful adults, and then turn around and do it again.
Yeah. Well, I know, I think Hallie started the Freshman Academy here at Collierville High.
Yeah, the freshman mentoring.
Fantastic.
Sure.
Now, this is going to be a hard one for you, because I can think of so many people you might think of. But what Colliervillian has made the greatest impact on your life, other than your beautiful wife?
Right. I've thought about that. There've been so many. Jimmy Hayslip and Dudley Aiken were principals. They were Colliervillians at the time. But somebody who lives in Collierville, I mentioned him before. I watched Mr. Cool, James Llewellyn, for many years. And to watch James handle everything thrown at him with grace was a great example for me in dealing with him. And, he's about to retire. And we've had the saying a long time that we were supposed to go out together, but I jumped the gun on him. But the things that James, and not only James, but the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, School Board again, and Stan Joyner, but James in particular, who I was dealing with 101, who still lives in Collierville, and he has been in this community and watched a lot of the things that have happened in this community, just like I have, grow and prosper and change. So I think, influential impact, James would be one that just jumps in my mind.
Yeah, and I will tell you, James was obviously a guest on the show earlier and talked about what he believes is his greatest contribution was this school and working together with you and being able to work it out financially, get the bond issued, and doing all the things they've done. And so, again, such a great legacy for so many people, and you two certainly had a huge role in that. Now let's talk about, here we are in Collierville High School. We're filming in this amazing building that you really helped create the vision for and made happen. What would be the message that you would like to send to the students of Collierville High School about leadership?
Participate, step out of your comfort zone, jump in things that you might not otherwise think you should. You have an amazing facility here. You have an opportunity to do things that you may not have even envisioned. Learn your strengths, learn your weaknesses, and then be kind and help other people and help fellow classmates and help teachers. If I could probably say one thing to anybody in the world right now would be, let's be kind and let's get that back. And I think we talked about leadership and some adjectives or whatever, but I would hope that kindness would be one that people would think of when they thought about me. But I would really prefer that it be that kids show that. I have this talk every week with my grandkids, and I said, no matter what happens, you treat other people right and be kind. Here, be a leader that respects other people, works with other people, and is kind to other people, and embraces all the opportunities you have here. Fantastic.
There's no doubt in many Colliervillians' eyes that you have created a legacy that truly is unmatched. But when you look back on your career and you think about what you've done, what would you hope to be your legacy?
Gosh, that's so hard without sounding, you know me well enough. I don't like talking about myself or tooting my own horn. I would hope to build relationships that I was able to pull people together and create something both in a school district and a facility that the crown jewel of the community, as it was referred to many times, but it will last, as you said, but it will help. I think it really helped. I was amazed when we were talking about where we were going to put the school and the geographical location and all the comments that came from who knows where about where and where you're going to put it there and all of that. But once we did and it was built and you watch everything growing around it, you think, well, see, we were right in that case, that it was the right place to be, and that people would respect leaders and decisions they have to make and know that it goes in, and that hopefully I gained that respect in a lot of cases of saying, he was looking out for our community, he was looking out for our kids and all of those things he was doing, and whatever John Aitken did, he did with the thought of it, if it didn't benefit kids, then it wasn't worth doing. So, that's hard for me to say, but I would hope that that's what people would say.
Well, I think you can feel pretty comfortable with that. Wow, what a story. What a conversation. John, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all the stories. I want to thank you for all the work you've done. I want to thank you for putting these thoughts down so we can capture this. Hopefully you're not going anywhere for a long, long time.
I hope not.
But I think telling the story the way you had today is so meaningful. So I want to share, I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the leadership that you provide. I want to thank you for the heart that you bring to everything you do. I mean, anybody who knows you, they know the heart you have for this community, the heart you have for the children, and the heart that you have for public education. And you've been willing to have the courage to stand strong for those things you believe in.
I appreciate that.
And I would tell you that you're a man of faith, a man of family, and a man who has many, many friends, and who love you and who appreciate everything you've done.
Appreciate that.
So thank you for leadership. Thank you for integrity. Thank you for being who you are.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being a part of Bull TV.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
The American historian and journalist Henry Adams once said, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." My dear friend John Aitken is a shining example of the ideal of teaching. His life work has been about empowering and inspiring generations of students to fulfill their potential and pursue their dreams, and become productive members of our society. John's life is a living testament to faith, to family, and to the future of our community, state, and nation. He's a man of steadfast character who leads with his heart. One of the greatest honors of my life is the friendship I've enjoyed with this truly great man and his incredible family. John Aitken is truly a living legend. His work on behalf of independent school districts across our state will ensure that every child, regardless of socioeconomic background, religion, belief, race, gender, or zip code, will be given the opportunity to have a world-class education. His life will affect eternity. John may never know how far his influence will lead, but I believe that his work, his life, and his spirit will endure forever. And that is my 2 cents. Until next time, I'm your host, David Pickler. Thank you for watching Bull TV, where together we deliver solutions for a stronger community.